After creating several queries and running them to analyze our data in the SQLite browser interface, it's now time to go back to Python. In here, we are going to be joining all of the tables. Please remember that we want to do this because we want to build some analysis on the whole table and then use that information to work with Tableau. And it's going to be much easier to work with one big table with everything together than just several pieces of the customers and their services. So right now, let's try to do this in Python. You know you can join data directly on SQL. That's something that you can do. You just use the join clause. But we're gonna see something a little bit simpler in here in Python. And I'm gonna guide you through how to do it in this code. So let's try in here adding a new markdown cell. Let me add several of them more. I'm gonna put in here join all tables. Recall that we have 5 tables. We have tables about the customer services, location, we have information about their account, their own demographics, and their churn. The idea would like to be to join all of them. But there's one small problem. If you remember, most of these tables have a different primary key. I mean, even though they're the same, the identifier is not exactly the same. So joining a lot of those tables with different keys, I mean, of course it's possible, but it's going to be annoying. So what we're going to be doing in this small piece of code is to transform all of those into the same name, and then the join will be only one line of code. First of all, let's try to see how can we join something with SQL and Python. So if you check in here, I have my execute, and I'm going to be creating a SQL query just to test how can you join something from SQL. Just a small reminder. So select asterisk, put it in here, from customer, and then I can put in here, maybe here, from customer, inner join, cost lock, using. So again, the ideal scenario will be to use one ID. We don't have that in this case, so we will need to use a different way, because the ID in customer lock, it's in here, it's cost ID, and the one in here is customer ID. So let me try to guide you through the process in SQL, and then we'll go back to Python. So the ideal scenario is like to use something like this, customer ID, right? That's the whole idea. But again, we don't have this case. So to build this, we'll have to alter the tables right there. So let's try to do it in here just to practice. So let's try to alter, first of all, the customer lock, and just to put it in the customer ID scenario. So core.execute, and I'm going to put in here the code, alter table, cost lock, rename column, and we go back in here, it is cost ID, like this. So cost ID to customer ID. And let's run this. Right. So now let's try to use this function we created to see the table info and find if we changed it or not. Let me try to put it in here. Okay, so now we see that we have successfully changed customer ID in the database. That's great. Now, if we run this code, you see that you have like a join. So it's apparently to be running. To be able to have something from this query, we'll need something to fetch the information. Let's just run car.fetch1. So now this is the information about the person. Remember, their ID, their gender, the number of dependent partners, and so on. And then we have the location, California, latitude, longitude, and the zip code. So this is a successful join. So if we want to do this for 5 tables, of course it's possible, but it's going to be much simpler to do it in Python, and let me tell you why. So first of all, let's try to do something like this in Python. The first thing I have to do is to change the cost lock data frame. So in here it's not defined. If it's not defined, maybe we miss it on the top in here. So let's read everything again. You read the customer lock, customer services, customer account, and customer churn. Right, so now that everything is run, so whenever you have something like this, and you know that sometimes you define it on the top, it's maybe because you restart the kernel or whatever. So if I run it now, I see the information about the customer location. What I'm going to be doing is to change this directly in Python, build a table, and then put that table directly on SQLite. So let's try doing that. Cost lock dot rename, and in here I'm gonna pass the argument columns, and I'm gonna pass a dictionary. The name was cost ID, remember, and now we're gonna be putting in here customer ID. So don't get confused. We did change the in the cost lock in the SQL database, not in this pandas data frame, right? So there are 2 different objects, the Python data frame, pandas, and the actual SQL table. We did change the table, we didn't change the Python and pandas data frame. So let's do it like this. Apparently it worked. So let's take a look on our data frame. So now it says customer ID. This is a very simple pandas code. Remember, cost log is a pandas data frame, so this rename is a part of a pandas library. Remember, you're going to be learning a lot more about pandas, and you can encounter this rename function a lot later in these modules, but for now, it's just a simple function in pandas to rename a column. In here, you pass a dictionary with the old name and the new name, and that's it. So how can we run now a join with, let's say, the customer table and this table? It's going to be very simple. You have to do this. pd.concat, again, a pandas function. And in here, you're going to be passing a list with the 2 data frames. So it's going to be customer and cost lock. Then I'm going to put in here join equals inner, axis equal 1. So let me break down this line of code in here. So PD is pandas. Remember that we call pandas. Concat is a function in pandas that allows you to join data frames both vertically and also one on the side of the other. Okay. So this type of horizontal join is what we want. So in this case, we're going to do an inner join, the same join as you know from SQL, and axis 1 just states that I want to do it in the columns, all right? So horizontal join. If we run this, you see that now apparently we have successfully joined data sets. We do have a problem. Customer ID is repeated. We are going to deal with this later. But now you see that this is the code now to join tables directly in pandas. We haven't put this yet into the database. We're going to do that later. This is just a practice scenario.